fuck it. That's how we're going to introduce today's session. Basically, due to somebody not being able to join and one other person having a really crappy connection, we decided to turn the 38th episode of Saltmarsh's Isle of Dread into a just chatting type thing on Twitch, where we're going to talk about D&D 1 or 1D&D. I don't even know what it's called. That's how much information I know about this new system. Let's see. So if we're going, it's basically to 1D&D coming 2024. I'm sure a lot of other people have talked about this, but can I share this? I guess I can share this.
Dungeons and Dragons is...
You know what? Let's just put it on here, and I can just add a new media source. No, just a new window capture. There we go. And we're going to do 1D&D. Here we go. Google Chrome. Okay, so let's just play it. What's going on here?
Is a thrilling adventure, one we play together as Dungeon Master and players, but also an adventure itself. Now we stand at the start of a new generation of Dungeons and Dragons, and today we're going to introduce some of what's in store for us as we embark on an initiative that we call 1D&D.
Growing up, I loved fantasy, but I never saw myself as the hero because I didn't think it was possible for someone who looked like me, who acted like me, who was like me, to be that hero.
We want to continue to reach out to folks who are interested in fantasy, who love storytelling, who enjoy spending time with their friends and creating these collective stories that they can remember for years to come.
D&D's been around for 50 years, and there's very little that persists that long that becomes generational, that people can really just not only share, but literally hand down to their kids. What we want to do is just add to that legacy.
We did a smart thing with 5th edition by listening to the fans, and what came out of that process was a system that is stable, that is well loved, that incorporates the best elements of earlier editions. Now that we have that, we are no longer in the position where we think of D&D as an addition. It's just D&D.
5th edition is a rule set that has worked for so many people and has brought so many new and exciting folks into the game. It's more important for us to continue to cultivate and respect and love what it is, you know, that the world has told us is working for them.
The sort of change you're going to see isn't about taking anything away from you, isn't about changing any of that stuff that you love. It's much more about giving you more options, giving you more choices you can make, more character types you can play, more magic spells you can cast. Basically, you know, we're very happy with the game the way it is today. We just want to build on that. We're revising the major core rulebooks that every player uses, the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Monster Manual.
One of my focuses, specifically, is the Dungeon Master's Guide. I'm going to make some structural changes to make it more friendly to new DMs.
When it comes to our
An expert class?
It's about as versatile as our players.
So
we want to show that the person you are can appear in the world of Dungeons and Dragons.
It's like that's what 2024
I think it's like skills.
is
skill
this
classes,
promise of
like
getting
rogue,
new versions of the
ranger,
books that are the game you know, but
I forget.
reflect where the game is presently.
So you have your normal class and a skill class on top.
No, it's not like a prestige class or anything. It's like it's like a classification of the class. If that makes any sense. So there's like expert classes which focus on skills. There's arcane, or I forget the terminology exactly. I think it's like arcane, which are like sorcerers, wizards, warlocks. Divine, which are clerics, druids, paladins.
It's grouping classes into
it's kind of like
uber classes.
like
Okay.
Strikers, defenders, that stuff.
And then what is that? I wonder what that does. Is it just give them certain advantages, or is it more around helping it?
I think it's just for classification wise.
Right.
Like, just like, if you want someone that's good at skills, choose one of these guys.
You want to tank? You want to tank? Choose this. You want to? Yeah. Magic user, choose this. Okay.
All of the expert classes, I think, gain expertise. So there might be like one like thread throughout the like 3 grouped up classes.
Hmm. Cool. Okay.
So if you play like if you play a down troop, such
Sure. Having a hard time. Having a hard time hearing you,
Might
man.
make that out.
No. It's okay. It's all right. Let's stop sharing that. So okay, well, hey, here's a question then for the group. So we're learning a little bit about D&D 1, but what do you not like about 5e right now? Like, what are the things that really like make it frustrating, or like, oh, I really wish that this was either more complicated or more simple, or if they had something like this. Because again, I can't compare as well because I only played the red blue. What was it called? Was it called Bexa?
Beginner, expert.
Yeah, beginner, expert, companion, master, and immortal. Beckme or something like that. But again, but it didn't really matter. It was like about the stories that we told. So I didn't really have a chance to compare like full on hardcore AD&D, which everyone does, with 5e, and they go, oh, well, I hate this, I don't like this. But I always thought there's enough optional rules. I mean, if you want to do flanking, we can do flanking. If you want to be, pedantic about the angles of firing and cover and everything, we can do that, right? There's things that the DM could add if you wanted to. But I think for me, one of the things I always found I liked that it's simple, advantage or disadvantage, and there's once or twice where I thought their double advantage or double disadvantage should play into it. But then I can't remember what the scenario was. It was we were playing Tomb of Annihilation, and I remember like these guys should have super advantage on this. But then afterwards I thought about no, that's a DM call to go and say you can have advantage, and then you'll have a plus an additional modifier that I could add in to show how easy it was, or just auto succeed if I ever wanted to. And again, but that's up to the DM and the players if they're comfortable with that. How about you, Steve? Anything? I mean, you've played in the past, though, too, right? You've played 5e's not your first, right? So not your.
I played
AD&D. Yeah. So what was? I mean, in 5e, what's the? I mean, what do you like or don't like about it that you're like, okay, I wish they could tweak this a little bit if it's a rule set issue.
It's kind of nerfed in that, like the one thing that just bothers me, although I certainly take advantage of it, is that whole I'm near death, right? And then I get a good 8 hours sleep, and all of a sudden I'm back to full health and ready to go.
Yep.
I don't know. It just that's the one thing I like about DCC. Well, one of the things I like about DCC is that it's a little more realistic in that sense.
If you're gonna like almost die, you're gonna take a long time to recover.
Yeah.
And if you burn, like when you dig deep, you're taking something out of you that is going to be almost impossible to replace, or a long, arduous task to try and get your stamina up again after weeks of recovery, right? Yeah, that's a fair point. DCC, because if you come from 5e, they're like, oh damn, DCC is tough, but yeah, more realistic.
Yeah.
Greg, anything?
I've only really played Pathfinder before this,
right?
Which is kind of
3.5. Yep.
But we didn't play. We just played with the starter set.
Right.
Like not the full rules for that, but I think 5e's pretty good. But I don't know. Could be better.
Here's the thing: is like people talk about like distant, like, oh, I wish it could do this. Okay, well, specifically, wish it could do this. Tell me what that wish it could do is. Again, I think I agree with Steve. Yeah, and this is, I guess, D&D, or maybe it's just RPGs in general. Half your party goes down. We can always heal them up. I mean, and Logan, you know this too, right? You're totally overpowered when it comes to healing everybody, right? I understand that, we never use this. Maybe this is us, or I don't know, but like healing potions, we never use potions. We always want to use spells, right? And so it'd be like, okay, well, what's the point of these potions where we're just going to use magic all the time? Now, of course, I could always go and say, oh, magic is not working right now, or, you know, I think I tried to do it. Remember Elmo, the emaciated in this? So he's dead. So, by the way, in the rules as written or in the module, he's supposed to die. Okay? But you're like, okay, so what makes him special that he would die, but everybody else, including NPCs in your party, wouldn't? You can bring him back, right? Like, oh, even you revivify the guy. Okay. So it's like, as a party, you go half a year down, let's heal you up. Okay, we're back up again. No, as you're saying, Steve, no repercussions. Like, oh yeah, my arm got chopped off, but I'm okay now. I got healed. Fine. There was that. I think that's one of the optional. That's another thing with DCC. When you take critical hits, or you can like lose function, like they can't be healed. If you get your arm chopped off, healing doesn't regrow your arm, right? It'll just cauterize the stem, right, and make sure you don't bleed out. But that's one.
Regeneration to grow limbs back in 5e.
Yeah, you can.
There you go. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but again, you can't just heal the guy. You gotta. Well, although again, there's the optional rule. You could use the optional rule, or it's maybe homebrew rules of limbs and critical hits and critical failures. Right? There's lots of tables on how those were used in previous editions. What were you saying, Steve?
I'd kind of say 5e is kind of like the participation trophy version of D.
Yeah, but once again, I still like the idea. If you want to make it more complicated, you can bring in some of the other. And that's at the beginning of our session. Like we weren't as specific about what we were going to do and weren't going to do. I think I said things like no flanking, and I think I actually has rules. Yeah, rules lawyer. Missing players, XP versus milestone, hiding monsters, inspiration, bloody.
And I think
Who's that?
I think in I think that's so I think 5e kind of encourages players to min-max.
Yep.
Which is fun on some levels, and not on others. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing either.
I mean, min-maxing is, look, that again, I don't put it all on the DM because the players have to participate as well. But I mean, you're like, hey, it's not just about, if it's just min-maxing and rolling, putting together the best combination and not role-playing anything, I think it takes away a bit from it, right? Again, I kind of like, that was a cool thing about DCC, and that's what I really think we should do more in D&D. I like the idea of rolling. Like, forget about this point-buy stuff, just roll. I mean, that was I remember the thing I loved was rolling those dice, man. Hey, like, oh my god, my character's gonna be just an idiot. But hey, yeah, well, no, you decide whether he's an idiot or a weakling. That you can put that crappy stat in whatever you want. But
your dump stat.
there's which is fine, or a couple dump stats. Hey, I don't know if you guys know. Dusty's thing that he runs with on Fridays. He's got one of his characters is one of his guys is a bard, and he's like intelligence of 5 or 5 or 6 or something. It's a bard with and he plays him up perfectly. So it's just like, I mean that's kind of like that's a great use of, hey, he just rolled or said, okay, I don't know how he did it, but that's a great way. Like, hey, be an absolute moronic bard, or be a super erudite, studious orc barbarian, right? I mean, you can do anything you want, I guess.
How does he remember any songs?
Sorry?
How does he remember any songs?
He's inspired. I guess his wisdom. I don't know. His charisma is just so that he keeps repeating himself. He can't remember the line. He just remembers the line and goes, "Oh, did I just say that line? Oh yeah, I guess I did." No, yeah, min maxing is. I don't know. You can. I also remember. Did you guys? I'm really missing some in-person D&D, and I watched the Dusty stream last week. So I had a character, Simi. She was this halfling ranger. She was a ranger. I just loved having her. She started when I was at the comic shop in 2018 or something, and I got these bracers of archery, which allowed her to be like pretty kick-ass. But she's a halfling, so she can't have long bows. It's got to be short bows, right? But I just had some good flourishes with her. She eventually got an oath bow, an oath short bow, and she was epic. We had a couple of epic dragon battles, and and we fought Tiamat, right? It was the Rise of Tiamat. And you were there. Sorry, Steve, what are we talking about? You were there. And there was, were you there when we killed it was the white dragon, I think, right? So there was and Simi got like it was a crit with a dragon slayer arrow, okay? And it was pretty epic. And that wasn't min-maxing. That was like, okay, we're fighting it.
The dice did that.
The dice did that, and the dice did it. The crit was the dice did it, but at the same time, we got to get a dragon slayer arrow if we're gonna go fight a dragon, right? So, but that was the reason I'm saying that. It was just awesome playing that character, and then Dusty brought her back into the current campaign 100 years plus after the events of Simi's time frame. And so, but they met the ghost of Simi, who had done all this other after the adventure finished. She kept her going. We talked a little bit. Oh, if she would have done this, she was like member of the Emerald Enclave, blah blah blah. And there was some continuity. Like they could like go and really just say, oh yeah, well she was doing this, and they found the oath bow again, and so one of them has Simi's old oath bow, which is pretty cool. And what was the point of this conversation? The point of the conversation was, what was the point of the conversation? Oh yeah, so it wasn't like it wasn't min-maxing, but it was more, it was the role play, it was the preparation, and hey, we gotta buff this way, we gotta make sure we do this, and this, and Steve remembers we were going back and forth for. When we're trying to take on Tiamat, we spent days going back and forth on Discord. Okay, well, what if we do this? We can do a true polymorph to be he's gonna fly, so we got to have at least 2 or 3 of us to fly. Okay, well, there's all these pillars that these cultists are on, and they're trying to bring Tiamat back. What if we became a purple worm and dug through those pillars and they couldn't, finish the spell? And Dusty hated when he was going, you guys don't have the time. You guys are there now. You don't have the time to go and do all this planning. Like, well, I mean, we assume we're going to, I remember how it must have been frustrating for everybody. And then, again, not everybody was on sort of the same page. Like, okay, well, why don't we go do this? I remember Steve and I were talking. I think Steve, you introduced me to the peasant railgun at that time, which was still that's something about D&D that you're like, okay, you know what, that's got. It may be broken, but the damage is still going to be the same 1d6 or whatever it is with a spear or whatever. So it doesn't matter how fast it goes; it's still doing the same damage. You can try to break the system, but DM could also just, well, this is what's written in the module, and yeah, that railgun's not going to work. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just wandering. My thoughts are wandering.
I proposed we use the peasant railgun.
No, you didn't. You just explained what it was, and I remember. Oh, that's rules how they can get broken. No, you didn't. No, you didn't propose that. You did. I think your proposal of like true polymorph spell every day, and you asked how many days do we have to prepare? Because you could like, I think you were saying, okay, well these guys could be. Everybody would have a shield guardian, right? I think you said, okay, well, I could create a shield guardian or true polymorph summon a shield guardian, so everybody in the battle would have their own shield guardian that would take all the damage instead, right? Like, okay, that's.
He actually allowed that for the most part.
He did, yeah. And then we got, and then he
nerfed him pretty quick, but
yeah. I mean, he did. It was a pretty good battle. I love how it was contentious for one of the players who was not as active in the battle as he really wanted to be. But I don't know. I still remember the battle, and I also remember Mark didn't he go to a different plane? He like died, and he broke his
spear, the staff over his knee.
Yeah.
Like a huge explosion, which sent him to another plane of existence.
And he saw the vision of a gold dragon.
Bahamut.
Yeah, brought him back. Bahamut brought him back to finish the job with Tiamat. That's pretty good, actually.
That's awesome. That whole thing's a little sore spot with me because, like, we finished this epic battle after a year-long campaign, and there's like no celebration or anything. It's all of a sudden like, so I want to talk about my next thing where dragons have taken over the world. I'm like, wait, what? We just killed Tiamat. How did that happen?
I will also agree that needs to be done better. I also, when I finished Tomb of Annihilation, I didn't give the players enough release for completing this. There should have been a full session about the epilogue, right? Should have been like, hey, after this, these are the choices. We actually need to spend some time closing it off rather than just saying, oh, you beat Sararak. I think that would have been better with that campaign as well for Tiamat. Yeah. But again, there's. How about remote versus in person? So, Greg, you're playing in person still sometimes, aren't you? How much are you using like minis and full-on terrain and because Dusty is very, very elaborate and it's great. Like it's it's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. Some of the stuff is very immersive. I love it. But I personally, I've got no stamina or no patience to go put that all together, especially knowing we're going to go through it in an hour and then we're never going to see it again, right? What are your thoughts there, Greg?
I love in person. I like it more than online. I still love online, but just beats at the table.
Yep.
I do have these giant gridded pads, and then I draw stuff out on those.
Are you the DM?
I am. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So like that, and then the player just got a key like 2 sessions ago, so I drew it out all on there.
Perfect. That's know what?
Yeah, just throw that out like this is your castle. You can alter it if you like, whatever.
So I took cartography in college. I was a geography major, and I had but my cartography course. It was the I loved it. It was like, and that's, I go back to thinking what I loved about D&D was actually just the maps, or just making maps, or like, hey, things can go here, we can make it this way. But yeah, that's kind of the, yeah. I mean, we all do. This is where the D&D 1, if it's becoming more digital, like, isn't that kind of the point? This is supposed to be an analog thing. If we want to go digital, there's a million RPG games. I mean, there's Baldur's Gate's out. There's Pathfinder. I mean, I love playing. Don't get me wrong. I love playing online games as well. But if it's D&D, it's, I think, the more pull out your pad and your pen, or write down your. You show me the map. I'm going to describe the map, and you're going to write it down. Like, there's something about that that's kind of cool. How about you, Steve? Yeah, Steve?
One of the things I loved when I first started playing AD&D years ago is, like, I didn't know what the hell was going on. And what kind of ruined it for me was when I bought the DM guide because I was going to run a game. And then it's almost like I knew too much. It just wasn't fun to play anymore. There was no more discovery.
Right.
So one of the things, and I keep bringing DCC up, but because I just like it, like monsters, right? In DCC, you're not encouraged to say, okay, you're attacked by a pack of 12 kobolds. You don't.
Yeah.
You use descriptions rather than like the name, so that there's a little more mystery to it. Obviously, as you go through life and experience more of it, you'll learn what things are, but it's just not as rote, I guess.
I mean, I like the fact that, start as a farmer or start as a brick hauler, or you're not going to know what the hell is that. That's a kobold. You're right. They're not going to know what that is. It's some little
like a humanoid dog-looking
thing. Exactly. Yeah. That's a good point. Very good point. When did you first? I'm reading an interesting book. You guys, maybe you've heard of it. Have you ever heard of the Coddling of the American Mind? I will. It's in the other room. I'll get it later. It's basically talking about how we're trying to make everybody safer. Parents are trying to make their kids safer and safer and safer, and what we do is protect them too much from the world. So when something happens in the world, we're not able to deal with adversity anymore. That's the basic summary. And what that's done is has changed politics. It's changed colleges. It's changed way that people think they are expected. Society should what they should expect out of society. But there's this one chapter that's talking specifically about suicide and depression in high school students, and I think it's middle school and high school. And they're just talking about, there's a direct correlation between screen time, so mobile phones and TVs, and an indirect and suicide and depression, which is specifically started in 2011. Like, they can actually pinpoint a certain time where things just sort of went up, and it was like directly related to people disconnecting from in-person, and this is written before the pandemic, in-person, people-to-people kind of communication. So as I was just reading it again, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? That's kind of why I like, D&D. I'm a personal guy, pretty social anyway, so this is a nice little renaissance. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this stuff. It's really fun. But also I want my son, he's 11, which is just the time to really get into D&D. I mean, it is really it's a really very screen and very social media, and like, oh, my phone, it's all about my phone. Like, and you know what? As soon as he's been grounded for a week and a half for something that he's a big incident from last week. And since he's been off the games and the phone, I can see a fundamental change in his behavior. He's like more on when he's talking to us, and he's like comes home from school. Hey, Dad, I was doing this and this, like, which is really interesting. I can see a very direct correlation between, hey, when he was playing games a little bit, now he's not playing it at all. And I get every couple days he's just like, he's got that addiction or that withdrawal kind of the symptoms, but he's been so much better, and I just I think the D&D side, if it's going to go down a digital route, that's not necessarily a good thing. I know we want to make life easier, but if it's life easier, it's all going to be video games. Keeping sort of the there's Jeff. He's okay. So he won't be able to make it next week. Yeah, it went down. Anyway, so there's something to be said for the books, and I love that. Sometimes D&D Beyond is great. Good to have your character there right in front of you, but scratched up old sheets of paper with here's my first character I made when I moved to California. Okay, that's kind of cool. He's still there. So
I found some of my old AD&D characters.
You did?
Some of the old character sheets.
That's great, man. I have an old. I don't have. This is one of the sad things. I've been moving so much in my life. At some point, I lost. Some point, I found my old D&D books, and another point, I've lost them. So I've lost all those books. So I had all the. That's one of the things. It doesn't keep me up at night, but I'm like, fuck. But somehow I still have this pack of dice. I've got my original dice. Like the ones that weren't colored, it came with a crayon.
Yep. I have those. I can't find those either. They must have gotten lost along the way. I hate they're gone. I still have a stack of Dragon magazines going back to number 25.
Nice. Dragon. Those are good. Some good source material, man. Yeah. But now, Greg, you're gonna say, when you're in your 40s and 50s, you got these books, you just keep them somewhere. It doesn't matter how much stuff you get. Make sure you keep them in a secure, locked vault, because they will be worth something someday. And it's not gonna be worth any money. It's gonna be worth just personal glory to you.
I did find my original character from when I first. I don't know if it's when I first.
Pathfinder.
First started with Pathfinder.
That's good. Okay, yeah. Keep that.
It wasn't too long ago, but I mean,
Yeah, I got it. Cool. Okay, well, you guys, I tell you what. So it looks like Jeff is not in next week. They're out of town on vacation. We are still going to go ahead though with the three of us, and then we'll see whoever wants to play Jeff's character. If he wants to, we'll live stream it anyway. You can see if he wants. So. Okay, all right, guys. Look, let's have an earlier night and. Good chatting. We'll see you next week, okay, guys?
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, if anyone's still doing this. So, ciao.